Hey Gator fans, thanks for joining me. This video is presented to you by BetUS, and I have a really special guest. I'm very excited. This is a friend of mine, Shannon Snell, All-American at Florida, played in the NFL for the Cowboys and the Jags. And listen, I know it's been a couple days, but you have to be feeling the same way that I'm feeling this week, and it's not good.
Yeah, Allie. The weird thing is, I don't. There's been few times, as a spectator, as a fan, as a former player, that I've felt um, upset about a football game that the Gators have played. And I gotta say, this is probably as mad as I've been since I probably was playing. It was a total, just complete lackluster effort, almost like they didn't care. Um, I don't even know how to explain it. It's still kind of raw on me what happened on this past Saturday.
Yeah, I think, the resounding theme that I keep hearing from every former player I talk to is they were really disappointed in the effort level and, the juice kind of on the sidelines as well. Speak to that, right? Effort is something that's a choice.
Yeah, Allie. I mean, I understand in games sometimes the better team wins. You get outplayed. You get. I mean, the talent on the field kind of outweighs the other team, if you will. In this case, us. But you saw it across the entire football game is that, whether it was guys chasing down interceptions that were thrown or guys, it just felt flat. It felt like it wasn't the first game of the season. It felt like it was against a subpar opponent and we were 9-0 and we were winning the game. There was no energy, there was no juice. And it was super disappointing that it was the very first game of the season. I think all of us, me included, saw all the hype videos. We saw all the excitement. There's technically a lot on the line. Not number one because you got an in-state rival with Miami. You're recruiting against. There's a lot of guys at that game. Not to mention the first home game of the season, and you got a record on the line where UF doesn't lose the first game of the season at home. It just doesn't happen. So there was everything set up for success, set up in our favorite year 3 under Billy Napier, and it just completely was a crap the bid kind of moment, which was probably the most aggravating and the most just head scratching moment that Florida was never really even competitive in the game. Even on Montrell Johnson's big touchdown run, they weren't competitive. And it was just, they were out coached, they were outplayed, they were out hustled. In every facet of the game, Florida they looked like trash.
So, I think part of the anger comes from the fact that we heard this offseason that Florida had improved in all three areas, of the game, and they'd made coaching changes, they'd made personnel changes, and we listened to Coach Napier talk about that this was the best team they've fielded since he got here. Were you out at any practices this offseason?
I went out to a couple of them, just happened to be by and just take a peek. And, you know, there was certain points, and you can't tell everything from practice, Allie. You know that just as much as I have. Is that you have a husband that's played the game, so there's a lot of stuff that gets hidden in practice. There's a lot of stuff that you can't tell until the bullets start flying live, and I think that's kind of what it was. You kind of hope and you kind of pray that okay, some of the things that you may see they're working on, some of the things that you see that may have gone wrong or that may not have looked well in practice, it's just kind of an anomaly, something that just doesn't happen very often. But the simple reports of the right side of the line were definitely true. I mean, they were not. I mean, the line, the offensive line, which has been somewhat of a work in progress for like the last few years,
Mm-hmm.
is just it's not very good. And I can say that being a former offensive lineman. I'm not taking shots at anybody, but
Now, before we go on, I want to give BetUS some love. You can go to BetUS and bet right now. Head on over to BetUS and use the promo code YouTube150, YouTube150 for a nice 150% deposit bonus up to $2,000 on your first three deposits. I appreciate BetUS for their support. Go ahead and check them out.
it, you got guys that are really big. You got guys that are somewhat have an athletic body type, but I don't think they have. Some of them just don't have the mentality to be probably playing not only in the SEC, but not playing college football. Just the lackluster effort of just having some pride about keeping your quarterback upright, or having some pride in the fact that, hey, I'm not going to get beat on a play. And the offensive line being the most glaring, because of the very fact is that we got beat. And when I say beat, it was like a sound beating up front by Miami's defensive line. And as I'm sitting here and as I'm thinking about it, it's just there's no rhyme or reason. There's no reason. You can't even blame. I know a lot of us, and myself included in the past, have blamed Dan Mullen for leaving the cupboard like
Yeah.
the bear and not having enough guys. But damn it, this is year three. There's the portal. There's a bunch of resources at hand for Billy Napier and that staff to get guys on the field that matter, that could execute at a really high level. Yet we continuously don't do it.
Yeah.
And you know what? The schedule gets harder, Allie. It's not even a, hey, this schedule is a little easier. Things start to happen a little bit down the road for us. It gets harder, and Miami was not a gimme, but it was definitely something that should have definitely been more competitive at home.
Well, and I think that's part of what everybody's so upset with, too. Had we lost to Miami straight up, you're just trading blows back and forth and you lose by 3 at the end. I think fans would have a different feeling about this, but I do think that daunting schedule at the end where you're saying, like, shoot, if we weren't even competitive against Miami, we're going to play 6, 7 teams that are probably tougher than Miami down the road. And it makes it harder to find wins. But, where's the disconnect, I guess? Did Coach Napier believe the things that he said about the team? And is that kind of an issue on itself, that he didn't see these problems? Or did we practice just differently than we performed?
I'm not going to knock Billy Napier I think he's got a good mind for football. I can't knock his football IQ, because I think he's shown, of course, over the course of last year, how the offense really did get better. I think he's shown that he has some grit, some know-how about football. But you know, the same problems that plagued him a year ago or 2 years ago are still plaguing him this year. There's positions, the defense not good. Like him being the CEO, and then goes back to him being the play caller on offense. I, Billy Napier is still calling the offense, and if that's a good thing, great. If the offense would have looked great on Saturday, that would have been great, but it didn't, right? But beyond that is that him being the CEO of the team, meaning that he has to pay attention to every facet of the game. If the defense is not doing well, you know what? You got to address it. If the offense is not doing well, guess what? Address it with the coordinators. I get that there's some head coaches across the country that call their own offenses, but they're not schools that have losing records the previous year, or schools that have issues on special teams, or schools that are having issues with just running a normal, competent offense. It's a big disconnect from what Billy Napier probably wants to what he's getting, and it's all on him. This is year three. I don't have any. There's no sympathy for what he's doing or what's going on right now, because of the very fact of is he's had all this time. He's had all the resources. Everybody sees the entire staff. They see what's going on, and you know what? And if anybody knows me, I mean, I'm a very positive supporter of, and always have been, of Billy and the staff. But come on, man. There's got to be a point where we love you and everything, but you're here to win football games. And if you're not winning football games and you're losing them in the fashion that you did this past Saturday, how do you expect people to feel? How do you expect? Yeah, you're going to get loaded full of criticism. Yeah, you're going to be on the hot seat, because it's not like they gave you $10 and say go build your staff, or they gave you a budget on NCAA football 25 to build your staff. They gave you every resource under the sun. These boosters have opened up their pockets. The fan base has said, "Hey, look, come on, Billy, we're cheering for you." Yet it feels like we were like punched in the stomach by all these things that were said. And Billy Napier said, "Hey, this is my best team that I had since I've been here." That is a complete fabrication. If it's any indication of what happened on Saturday, it is probably the worst team in recent memory that we've seen from the Gators. Period.
Do you think it makes it worse when we do things like turn our TV on Sunday night and watch LSU's defense having taken, 10 steps in the right direction, or USC's, or we watch, head to head us against Miami, a team that hired Mario Cristobal 8 days after we hired Billy Napier, or we look at Texas A&M and it's year one for them and they're competitive against Notre Dame with a bunch of guys that jumped ship from Florida. Like, does that compound the fans' issues, do you think?
I think so. I feel like it's like we're snake bitten. It's like, hey, why can't we? And it's been a while since we've seen some winning times around here. It hasn't really happened under Billy Napier. Dan Mullins last year kind of went downhill. So it's been a rough 4 years for the Florida Gators. And I think all of us, from coming off of what Urban did, coming off of what, Spurrier did, even in Zook's years, Zook's worst years, he was going 8-5. So it was just,
Doug's
you
sitting
know,
here like, hey, why didn't I get this grace?
I mean, hello. I mean, that's, myself, Eric, there's a lot of people that can talk on the same thing. But Allie, it's just, and this is probably the frustration that I have personally, is that I've seen some of the worst times, and it's making me miss the Muschamp eras. It's making me miss the eras with Jim McElwain, because at least we were competitive. At least we put some competent football teams on the field that we didn't have to worry about offense all the time. We didn't have to worry about putting 11 guys on the special teams on the field for special teams. So, like, we're making these elementary mistakes, and I want everybody to understand, as a former player, yeah, we have to be supportive. We want to be, because we want to see our alma mater succeed. But there's got to be a point where the straw that breaks the camel's back. And Saturday was it for me. It was like, man, I can't believe, I'm selling wolf tickets to all my friends, family, everybody else that wants to listen to me, saying, hey, I think the Gators got it this year. And then all of a sudden, we come out and get a 40 burger put on us by the University of Miami, our in-state rival, who, in my opinion, is a really good football team. Let's not take nothing away from them. I think Cam Ward is I'm pretty impressed by him. I'm impressed by their offensive line. But hey, take a look. They recruited well. Francis Muaga, who Florida had the opportunity to get years ago, is now a starting right tackle for the University of Miami, and he's dominating.
Yeah.
These things catch up, and this is maybe a part of recruiting from years ago, but it's also a part of the fact that we just developing talent. And it doesn't seem like any of our guys have developed over the course of the last couple of years, and it's really hurt us in these football games.
I think for me personally, and I know this drives Eric nuts too, is that, we were sold that Coach Napier was such an attention to detail person. And, they say practice makes perfect. And I don't agree with that. But if you practice perfectly, you have a much better chance of playing mistake-free games. And it just feels like there isn't that attention to detail. But let's talk about where we can go from here. Are there any little things that they can adjust from one week to the other so that we can see some improvement?
I wish I could tell you yes, and the simple fact is that the offense is still predictable, Allie. I mean, if you look on any one of the Miami message boards, their defensive coordinator knew about the first 10 plays that Florida might call. And sure enough, they said they called 6 of them. 6 of the first 10 plays were scripted. And if you're doing the same thing year after year and you're not putting anything different on tape, then yeah, people are going to figure you out. Can they do something different? I certainly hope so. I hope your biggest adjustments and your biggest improvements come from game 1 to game 2. And we're playing a Samford team who's just itching to come in here to knock us off, but itching to come in here and play well. And I think this is kind of a trap game for Florida. It's like, oh, we're going to come out, we're going to play well. This isn't one of the SEC teams or team that's in the top 25. This is a trap game. And I think they need to go in there with the mindset of that every game that they play here on out is kind of like their college football playoff game, because of the very fact is that, hey, I don't think they showed enough in game 1. Matter of fact, they didn't show anything in game 1 that makes us believe Florida football is back. And I don't want to be the new Miami, but damn it, it's been 4 years that we've seen winning, that we felt good about the football team, that we didn't have to cut it on every Saturday and say, hey, we're in a spot to where I feel good and I can cut on Gator football and I don't have to drink a bottle of Crown later on. All right, so I think that's where we're at. Can they do something better? Absolutely. Not be predictable on offense. Take some shots downfield. Um, I think that's the intermediate to long passing game. We need to see that, because they're going to need it if they're going to want to win football games. I think everybody's figured out that Florida loves the short passing game. They love the screen game, and they're not executing it well. So it's not like they're masters at it. They're going to have to do some stuff differently. And defensively, I wish I could tell you. Defense was supposed to be better. We had athletes, we had guys, we had some depth, we had some explosiveness, and it looks worse than it did last year. And we have new defensive guys, we have new defensive coaches, and I don't know what the answer is. I would love the answer to be that Miami was just that good and we just got outplayed because they're better than us. But I don't think that's the case. I think it was a combination of Florida playing really bad, not having attention to detail, and Miami being a good team. So hopefully this Saturday that the coaches will coach better and the players will play better. And that's kind of the ultimate goal because I think there was no bright spot. Minus you take away Montreal Johnson's touchdown, there was no bright spot of what can you improve upon. I think everything was bad. So I think anything you do, if you get some competency going in that offense, if you get some cohesiveness going in that defense, and everybody's playing to the whistle, everybody's running to the ball, we stop making stupid penalties. I think that's a win.
All right, well, listen, speak for yourself because 11 men on the field for every special teams was a win in my book. But I completely understand. We're going to see DJ on Saturday. We talked about the offensive line problems extensively. So, do you expect more of the same, regardless of who is back there, a quarterback? Because if the line doesn't prove, it doesn't matter. Or do you think he adds some versatility that maybe Mertz doesn't bring to the table, and so the offense might get the ball moving a little bit more?
Yeah, I think you're going to see some pocket mobility. They're going to get him outside the pocket. Listen, we saw him, and it was impressive. The ball comes out of his hand different than a lot of other guys across the country. I mean, being a freshman, we've seen what he's done in high school. We've even seen some of the stuff he's done in practice. The kid's a special player. I'm excited for what he can do and what he can bring to the offense because I think the aspect of him being able to run, being able to scramble, a big guy trying to bring him down is a little tough. But ultimately, they're going to have to drop back. They're at some point in time. If they leave him in there, not only this week but following weeks, if they leave him in there, they're going to have to find a way to protect him continuously because he takes enough shots, he's up out of the game, and we don't have to worry about that. Just like what happened with Mertz. So I think he does bring an aspect. They're going to try to probably move the pocket around a little bit. They're going to try to get him on the run because that's what he does best. He's going to throw on the run. He's going to be a guy that can get out of trouble. But if you got three or four guys coming after him at the snap of the ball, you got guys that are having free releases at him. He's not going to be any kind of successful. He'll be just as successful as Graham Mertz was on last Saturday. So I think there is something to say that they're going to be able to move the pocket. They're going to be able to do some stuff that's a little bit different because of his mobility, but he's got a big arm. You got to protect him. You got to give him more than 2 seconds to throw the football. Yeah, if we can do that, then we'll be in a really good spot. If we can't, we'll have those same problems that have kind of plagued us for years. We can't protect the quarterback, and DJ Lagway's a special talent. So we got to figure out a way to protect this kid because he's the future, and we don't want to screw up. We don't want to screw with our future. That's just the simple fact, simple plain matter.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like we'll probably see less design runs than people assume we will see because he's already our second quarterback. So we get him, dinged up as well, and there's really no benefit in that for us. Then we're really up a creek. So, last question for you: what is now your outlook on the rest of the season? I know we shared similar thoughts about getting potentially 7-8 wins at the beginning of the year, and we were a little bit more high on that. It's harder to see where you pick those wins up. So what now?
Yeah. So the question is, where do we kind of go from here? What's the? I'm not. I'm not 100% sure. I like to say if Florida was more competitive in that first game, then we would be in a better spot. But I'm not sure. I'm not 100. I don't. I don't. If the season was going to be any indication of what happened on Saturday, and we saw what we saw, where we were kind of handled for like the first time in that particular way that I've seen in a long time, it's not going to play out well for Billy Napier. You got to go to Tennessee, you got to play Kentucky, Mississippi State's not going to be a pushover. There's a lot of teams in there that it's going to be a tough go, and I'm worried, Allie. I'm really worried about the fact that I don't see this playing out well unless something dramatic changes. And like I said, I'm hoping that Miami was so good that we just kind of ran into a buzzsaw. But we saw it. We saw the same problems. We've seen the same things. There's a blueprint for Florida, their defense, their offense, of what they do, and everybody's going to follow the same suit unless we change some stuff. We don't change anything. Get ready to lose more games, and when I say lose them convincingly. I'm hoping as a Gator, as a former Gator, I'm cheering for Billy. I want him to do well. I want this team to do well because I love these guys. But they got to be better than what they were on Saturday, because that was just disappointing and it was disheartening as a former player.
And bring some juice to the sidelines, please. I mean, even like, you got to give fans something to cheer for, but I've got to see that you're excited when you're out there, and it just felt flat.
Yeah. Yeah, it's flat. Flat is the word. I think anybody that was sitting in the stands, standing on the sideline, watching on TV, it wasn't really Florida. It wasn't even Billy Napier Florida for the last 2 years. I think he's brought at least a level of energy that made sense. And
Yeah.
you I think you nailed the I think you put that you nailed that perfectly on the head. Is that it was no energy. It felt like it was, they were just out there going through the motions. And hell, I would have preferred that them to do that the day before or the week before in practice than to
Yeah.
do that on game day, and really just have people questioning, hey, do you guys really want to play football?
Yeah. Well,
So,
Shannon, I appreciate your time as always. Glad you were around to get that off your chest. Hopefully, you feel a little bit better heading into Sanford. And, Gators always, right? In all kinds of weather, we bleed orange and blue.
and all kinds of weather. Go Gators, and let's hope for a win on Saturday. Hope to see you guys at the game. Let's give them hell.
All right. Thanks for joining me, Shannon.
Thank you, Allie.
Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you. As always, big thanks to BetUS for sponsoring this video, and more content coming your way soon. Go Gators.